Snow fell thick enough to silence the abandoned city. Ruined buildings stood like gravestones beneath flickering lights. 40 gunmen tightened the perimeter, barrels aimed directly at her. No backup, no exit. No one believed she could survive. She stepped forward alone, carrying exactly one magazine. Not to win. To bring one hostage home. In the radio, only a whisper remained. Either you go in, or he dies. The city had died 3 weeks ago. Captain Elena Briggs stood at the observation post, watching through thermal optics as the snow erased what remained of Karakov. The industrial complex sprawled across the valley like a corpse, its factories gutted, apartment blocks hollowed out by artillery. Smoke rose from fires that had burned themselves down to embers. The wind carried no voices, only the metallic groan of settling rubble. Recon Delta is pulling back, Lieutenant Marcus Holt said beside her, his breath crystallizing. They got within 2 blocks of the center. Enemy presence is too concentrated. Elena lowered the optics. How many? Conservative estimate? 40 combatants. Could be more. Holt pulled up the tactical display on his tablet, showing red markers clustered around the old municipal building. They've got overlapping fields of fire, roving patrols, and at least 3 sniper nests we've identified. It's not random, they're dug in. The hostage was somewhere in that building. Sergeant Nathan Cross, captured during a patrol sweep 4 days ago. Intel suggested he was alive, injured but stable. The enemy had made no demands. They were simply waiting for exactly this kind of rescue attempt. Command wants options by 0600, Holt continued. Current assessment is that any direct assault would result in unacceptable casualties. He paused. They're discussing alternate strategies. Elena understood the euphemism. Alternate strategies meant writing Cross off, meant telling his family that recovery wasn't feasible. She studied the map. The municipal building sat at a crossroads, surrounded by collapsed structures that created natural choke points. Every approach was exposed. The enemy had turned the entire district into a kill zone. What about the maintenance tunnels? She asked. Flooded. The water main broke during the initial bombardment. Holt zoomed in on the subsurface infrastructure. Even if they were accessible, they'd lead you directly into the basement level. That's where they're keeping him, and it's the most heavily guarded section. Elena traced the streets with her finger. Old storefronts, a collapsed parking garage, the skeletal remains of a theater. She had grown up in a city like this, before the war. She knew how these places breathed, how sound traveled through empty corridors, where shadows pooled deepest. Captain, Holt's voice carried a warning tone. Command isn't going to authorize anything that risks more personnel. Delta already lost 1 man to a sniper. They barely made it out. I know. Then you know what they're going to decide. Elena picked up her rifle, checked the action out of habit. The weight was familiar, comforting. She had carried this weapon through 6 operations, every round accounted for, every target confirmed. How long until command makes it official? She asked. 12 hours, maybe less. 12 hours, until Nathan Cross became a statistic, until his name joined the others on the memorial wall, until the official report used words like operational limitations and strategic priorities. She looked back at the city. Snow continued to fall, layering over the destruction, making everything clean and quiet and dead. Get me current enemy positions, she said. Every patrol route, every guard rotation you have. Holt stared at her. Captain. Just do it. He hesitated, then pulled up the intel package. Their pattern is consistent. They rotate guards every 4 hours. 3-man patrols sweep the perimeter on a 20-minute cycle. The sniper nests provide overlapping coverage of all major approaches. Weak points? There aren't any. That's the problem. Holt expanded the tactical overlay. They've had 3 weeks to fortify. They know we want Cross back. They're using him as bait. Elena studied the guard rotations, the timing intervals, the gaps that weren't quite gaps. 40 armed soldiers. Organized, disciplined, expecting an assault, but not expecting 1 person. Thanks, Marcus. For what? But Holt's expression showed he already knew. Captain, don't do this. Get some sleep, Elena said. Long day tomorrow. She walked away from the observation post, back toward the temporary barracks. The snow crunched under her boots, each step deliberate. In her mind, she was already mapping routes through the dead city, calculating angles and distances, counting rounds. Behind her, Holt called out, "How many magazines are you taking?" Elena stopped, turned back. The question hung in the frozen air. "One," she said. The enemy spotted her at 0347 hours. Elena had crossed the safe perimeter 15 minutes earlier, moving through the ruins on the eastern approach. The snow helped, muffling her footsteps, blurring her silhouette against the broken landscape. She had chosen this route because Delta's recon showed the lightest patrol coverage, a small gap in the enemy's attention. She should have made it another 100 meters before detection. The spotlight hit her like a physical blow, drilling through the darkness. Elena froze, rifle low, as voices erupted in the distance. Not panicked voices, coordinated ones. They had been waiting. Within 90 seconds, she counted 12 separate light sources converging on her position. Flashlights, headlamps, weapon-mounted illuminators. Each one attached to a soldier taking up a firing position. The beams crisscrossed through the falling snow, creating a cage of light around her. Her radio crackled. "Major William Drexler, Task Force Commander." "Briggs, what the hell are you doing?" She keyed the mic briefly. "Requesting you stay off this channel, sir. You are ordered to withdraw immediately. That's a direct." Elena switched frequencies. The enemy wouldn't monitor the command net, but they'd be listening to everything else. She needed silence. More soldiers appeared. They emerged from buildings she had marked as clear, from positions that hadn't shown up on thermal scans. The enemy had concealed their full strength, revealed it only now that she was committed. 20 soldiers visible, then 30, then 40. They formed a loose ring around her, keeping distance, maintaining overlapping fields of fire. Professional spacing, military discipline. These weren't militia. They were trained soldiers executing a prepared defensive plan. Nobody fired. That was the strangest part. 40 rifles aimed at her center mass. 40 soldiers with clear shots, and nobody pulled a trigger. They simply waited, lights pinning her in place, while orders were shouted in a language she didn't speak. Elena's radio crackled again, different frequency. Holt's voice, tight with stress. "Captain, thermal shows at least 40 hostiles in your immediate vicinity. Command is ordering full withdrawal. Air support is 10 minutes out." 10 minutes. Enough time to level several city blocks, kill everyone in the strike zone, including Nathan Cross. "Negative on-air support," Elena transmitted. "Tell them to stand down." "They won't." "Tell them." She studied the ring of soldiers. They weren't advancing, weren't retreating. They were containing her, treating her like a problem to be managed rather than eliminated. That meant someone was making decisions. Someone who wanted to understand what she was doing here. Someone who might negotiate. Or someone who enjoyed making examples. Through the snow, a figure approached from the north. Taller than the others, moving with the confidence of command. He stopped just outside the ring of light, features obscured but posture radiating authority. Words in accented English. "You are alone." Not a question. An observation. Elena said nothing. No support, no extraction, no air cover waiting. The commander stepped closer. "You walked into our perimeter, knowing this. Why?" "I came for Cross." The sergeant. A pause. "He is alive, injured, but stable. We have been hospitable." "Then let him go." "Why would we do that?" Elena shifted her weight slightly, testing the soldiers' reactions. Rifles tracked the movement, but no one fired. They were waiting for orders. "Because I'm offering an exchange," she said. The commander laughed, a sound without humor. "You? One soldier with one rifle, surrounded by 40 of my men, offering to trade yourself for a prisoner?" He shook his head. "You understand this is not negotiation. This is suicide." "Maybe." "Then why?" Elena didn't answer. Couldn't explain the promise she'd made to Cross's wife before deployment. Couldn't articulate the weight of leaving people behind. Couldn't make this enemy commander understand that some decisions weren't about tactics or survival, but about the person you saw in the mirror afterward. The commander studied her for a long moment. Then he spoke rapid orders. The ring of soldiers tightened slightly, closing the perimeter but maintaining their spacing. "Put down your weapon," the commander said. "Walk forward with hands visible. You will see your sergeant. Then we decide." Elena calculated odds. 40 against 1. No backup. No element of surprise. If she refused, they'd kill her where she stood. If she complied, she'd be captured alongside Cross, but she'd be inside. She lowered her rifle slowly, engaged the safety, set it in the snow, raised her hands, stepped forward into the ring of lights. The soldiers parted, creating a corridor. Elena walked through it, conscious of every barrel tracking her movement, every finger resting on a trigger guard. The snow continued to fall, settling on her shoulders, melting against her skin. Behind her, someone picked up her rifle. The corridor led toward the municipal building. The commander walked ahead, boots crunching in the snow, occasionally speaking into his radio. The perimeter soldiers maintained their positions, a mobile cage that moved with her. 40 soldiers, 40 professionals who had anticipated this exact scenario, who had prepared for it, who held every tactical advantage. And she had one magazine, still attached to her belt. They didn't search her. That was the first mistake. The commander led Elena through the building's shattered entrance, past sandbag emplacements and makeshift guard posts. Soldiers watched her pass with professional curiosity, not the hostile wariness of men expecting combat. They saw a prisoner, not a threat. The second mistake. Inside, the municipal building retained structural integrity despite the bombardment. Emergency lighting cast everything in sodium yellow, creating harsh shadows. The hallway smelled of diesel fuel and stale cigarette smoke. Somewhere deeper in the building, a generator rumbled. Elena counted exits as they walked. 3 doorways on the left, 2 on the right. Windows blown out but covered with plastic sheeting. 1 stairwell leading down. She cataloged each detail automatically, building a mental map. The commander stopped at a reinforced door. 2 guards flanked it, younger than the others, gripping their rifles too tightly. Nervous energy, less experienced. "The sergeant is inside," the commander said. 5 minutes. Then we discuss terms. He unlocked the door himself. Metal scraped against metal. The guard stepped aside, giving Elena a clear path into the room. She entered. The room had been an office once. File cabinets pushed against walls, desk overturned as a makeshift barrier. Nathan Cross sat on the floor, back against the desk, hands bound in front of him. His left leg was splinted, crude but effective. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut, but he was conscious. He looked up as Elena entered. Recognition flickered, then confusion. "Captain?" The door closed behind her. Lock engaged. She heard the guards repositioning outside, boots shuffling. Elena crossed to Cross, knelt beside him, checked his pupils, his pulse. The injuries were consistent with the intel report. Painful but not life-threatening. Someone had provided basic medical care. "What are you doing here?" Cross whispered. They said Command wasn't sending anyone." "Command didn't." He stared at her. "You came alone?" "Captain, I know what it is." Elena examined the splint, the makeshift bandaging. "Can you walk?" "Not quickly, not far." Cross's voice dropped further. "There are at least 30 of them in this building alone. More outside. You can't fight your way out." "I'm not planning to fight." "Then what?" Elena reached down to her belt, fingers finding the magazine pouch. She'd carried 3 magazines when she left the observation post, dropped 2 of them half a mile back, keeping only 1. 30 rounds. Standard load. She pulled it free, checked it in the dim light. 28 rounds. She'd fired 2 during a training exercise 3 days ago, hadn't restocked. 28 decisions between here and survival. Cross watched her count. "That's all you brought?" "It's all I need." "Captain, I don't." "Nathan." She looked at him directly. "I made a promise to Sarah. I told her I'd bring you home. I'm going to keep that promise." "Sarah?" His voice cracked slightly. "You talked to my wife?" "Before deployment. She asked me to watch out for you." Elena slid the magazine back into her pouch, secured it. "So that's what I'm doing." Cross closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had shifted in his expression. "I can't run. Even if we get out of this room, I'll slow you down, I'll get you killed. Let me worry about that. There are 40 of them." "I know. And you have 1 magazine." Elena stood, moved to the door, pressed her ear against it. Heard the guards talking quietly in their language. Relaxed conversation. Not expecting trouble. "How many rounds do you think I'll need?" she asked. Cross didn't answer immediately. He was doing the math, running scenarios. Infantry training taught you to calculate ammunition against targets, to estimate expenditure rates, to plan for sustained engagement. Finally, against 40 soldiers in a fortified position with no support, there's no number that works. Elena turned back to him. That's because you're thinking about winning. Then what are you thinking about? Getting you out. The distinction mattered. Winning meant eliminating the enemy, securing the territory, establishing control. Getting out meant something different, narrower, more specific. It meant using every bullet for maximum effect. No suppressing fire, no warning shots, no wasted rounds. Each trigger pull had to accomplish something essential, create an opening, eliminate a specific threat, buy crucial seconds. 28 rounds, 28 opportunities. Elena removed her tactical vest, began stripping unnecessary equipment. Extra ammunition pouches empty anyway. Breaching charges wouldn't need them. Medical kit kept it. Knife kept it. Everything else went into a pile in the corner. "What are you doing?" Cross asked. "Reducing weight. When we move fast." "Captain." "Stop calling me Captain. Right now I'm just Elena, and you're just Nathan, and we're getting out of this city." She finished stripping down to essentials. Rifle, 1 magazine, medical kit, knife. Save your energy for walking. Cross struggled to his feet, using the desk for support. His injured leg couldn't bear full weight, but he could manage a limping gait. "Even if we get past the guards outside, there's the entire building. Then the perimeter. Then 40 soldiers between us and friendly territory. I know the obstacles. Then you know this is impossible." Elena moved back to the door, listened again. The guards were still talking. One of them laughed at something, the sound carrying through the metal, human sounds. Soldiers passing time during a boring guard shift. She thought about her rifle, confiscated and probably sitting in a weapons locker somewhere in this building. Thought about the tactical advantages of having that familiar weight in her hands, then dismissed the thought. That rifle was gone. Fixating on it was wasted energy. She had her sidearm, 1 magazine, and the element of surprise, however briefly it would last. "Nathan," she said quietly, "I'm going to ask you to trust me. Can you do that?" He looked at her, really looked at her, and whatever he saw in her expression made him nod slowly. "Yeah," he said, "I can do that." "Good." Elena checked her watch. 0412 hours. The commander would return soon, expecting negotiation, expecting leverage. "When I move, you move. Don't hesitate. Don't look back, just follow." "Where are we going?" Elena smiled, though there was no humor in it. "Out." She drew her sidearm, checked the chamber. 1 round already loaded. 27 in the magazine. 28 decisions. The first one was about to be made. The door opened at 0419 hours. Not the commander. One of the guards, younger, checking on the prisoners. He stepped inside casually, rifle slung over his shoulder, holding a canteen. Probably ordered to provide water, maintain basic humanitarian standards. Elena was pressed against the wall beside the door. She'd been waiting there for 6 minutes, standing absolutely still, controlling her breathing, letting the guard's eyes adjust to the room's dimness. He saw Cross first, still sitting by the desk, exactly where he'd been when Elena entered. The guard's attention focused there, his posture relaxing slightly. Elena moved. Not with her weapon, with her hands. She caught the guard's rifle sling, yanked it taut against his throat, used his own weapon as a garrote. He tried to shout, but managed only a choked gasp. She maintained pressure, controlled the struggle, lowered him quietly to the floor as consciousness left him. Not dead, unconscious. She wasn't here to kill everyone, just the one standing between her and extraction. The second guard called through the door. "Dmitri?" Elena dragged the unconscious soldier behind the desk, next to Cross. Took his rifle AK pattern, loaded, safety off, checked the chamber, placed it in Cross's hands. "You remember how to use this?" she whispered. "I'm injured, not brain dead. Don't fire unless absolutely necessary." Sound travels. The door opened wider. The second guard leaned in, concerned about his partner. Elena let him cross the threshold fully before she moved, closing the distance in 3 strides, driving the butt of her captured rifle into the base of his skull with precise force. He dropped. 2 guards down. No shots fired. No alarm raised. Elena pulled both unconscious soldiers fully into the room, closed the door, engaged the lock from inside, bought herself maybe 5 minutes before someone checked on them. Cross struggled upright, gripping the AK. What now? Now we leave. She helped him to the door, opened it slowly. The corridor stretched empty in both directions, lit by those same sodium lights. The generator's rumble masked small sounds but wouldn't cover gunfire. 28 rounds. Now 26, if she was tracking correctly. No, wait, she hadn't fired yet. Still 28. Her mind was already in combat mode, calculating faster than conscious thought. Enemy positions, reaction times, sightlines. The building's layout unfolded in her memory, constructed from her walk-in, from years of training in urban environments. 40 soldiers in and around this building. She wasn't going to fight 40 soldiers. She was going to avoid 38 of them and neutralize exactly 2. Left, she directed Cross, supporting his weight as he limped forward. The injured leg dragged, creating a scraping sound. Too loud, too distinctive. They reached the first junction. Elena checked both directions, saw empty hallway to the right, heard voices to the left. She guided Cross right, moving deeper into the building rather than toward the obvious exits. "We're going the wrong way," Cross whispered. "We're going the way they won't expect." The building's rear section had taken heavier damage during the bombardment. Portions of the ceiling had collapsed, creating rubble-filled passages. More importantly, creating blind spots in the enemy's defensive coverage. They passed an empty office, its window opening onto the building's interior courtyard. Elena stopped, looked out. 6 soldiers in the courtyard, standing around a barrel fire, warming their hands, talking casually. Their rifles leaned against a nearby wall, within reach, but not immediately ready. Complacency. The enemy felt secure within their own perimeter. Third mistake. Elena moved past the window, continuing deeper. Found what she was looking for. A service stairwell, door hanging loose on broken hinges. The stairwell led down, toward the building's maintenance level. "The basement?" Cross asked. "That's where they kept me. There are guards down there." "How many?" 2 at the detention area entrance. Maybe more deeper in. 2 guards, specific positions, known quantities. Better than wandering hallways hoping to avoid patrols. Elena helped Cross to the stairwell, started descending. Each step required careful placement, the concrete cracked and unstable. Cross's breathing grew labored, pain evident in each movement. At the bottom, a corridor stretched into darkness. Emergency lighting had failed here, leaving only residual illumination from the floor above. Elena's eyes adjusted, picking out details in the gloom. 2 soldiers ahead, just as Cross had said. They stood outside a heavy door, alert but not tense, expecting the commander, perhaps, or relief shift, not expecting threats from within their own perimeter. Elena set Cross against the wall, signaled him to stay. Drew her sidearm, checked the suppressor she'd attached while still in the locked room, not silent, but quiet enough. 28 rounds. She moved through the darkness like water, making no sound, using the ruined corridor's blind angles. The guards were backlit by light from the room they protected, perfect silhouettes. She fired twice. Suppressed rounds punched through the first guard's center mass. He collapsed without sound. The second guard turned toward the movement, weapon rising, mouth opening to shout. Elena fired twice more. 4 rounds. Expended. 24 remaining. Both guards down. No alarm raised. She moved forward, checked the bodies. Both dead. Professional shots, groupings tight. No wasted ammunition. Cross limped up behind her. "Jesus, Captain." Elena ignored the comment, checked the door. Unlocked. Beyond it, a hallway led to the building's rear exit, a service entrance that opened onto the alley system behind the municipal building. A way out of the building, not a way out of the city. "Can you make it?" she asked Cross. He nodded, though his face had gone pale with pain. "I can make it." They moved through the door, into the hallway. The rear exit was 30 feet ahead, a metal door with panic bar, snow visible through the glass panel. Elena's radio crackled. Holt's voice, barely audible on the encrypted frequency she'd left open. "Captain, thermal shows multiple contacts converging on the municipal building. They know something's wrong. You've got maybe 2 minutes before they lock down the perimeter." She keyed the mic, Understood. 2 minutes to exit the building. Then, the real challenge would begin. 40 soldiers between her and safety, 24 rounds in her magazine, and a hostage who could barely walk. Elena pushed open the rear exit. Cold air rushed in, carrying snow and the distant sound of shouted orders. The alarm had been raised. She stepped into enemy territory, Cross beside her, and the dead city swallowed them both. The alley system was a maze of shadows and snow. Elena pulled Cross through the rear exit, immediately moving right along the building's foundation. Behind them, shouts erupted inside the municipal building. Someone had found the guards. Someone had discovered the empty detention room. The city's silence shattered. Spotlight beams cut through the falling snow, searching, sweeping across rooftops, and through broken windows. The enemy's response was fast and coordinated. These weren't amateur soldiers scrambling in confusion. They were professionals executing contingency plans. "They're sealing the perimeter," Cross gasped. His injured leg nearly buckled, but Elena caught him. "Captain, we're not going to make it." "Elena," she corrected. "And yes, we are." She pulled him into a recessed doorway, pressed them both against brick. A patrol rushed past the alley entrance, 3 soldiers moving with weapons ready, flashlights probing. They didn't check the doorway, didn't slow down. They were searching the obvious routes, the main thoroughfares. Elena had chosen this alley specifically because it didn't lead anywhere obvious. When the patrol passed, she guided Cross deeper into the alley system. These passages ran between buildings like capillaries, too narrow for vehicles, barely wide enough for 2 people to walk side by side. Snow had drifted here, creating misleading terrain, hiding debris and obstacles, perfect for losing pursuers, terrible for moving an injured man. Cross's footsteps were uneven, his dragging leg creating a clear trail in the fresh snow. Elena could erase the tracks, given time, but time was a luxury they didn't have. They reached a junction where 3 alleys intersected. Elena chose the center path, narrower than the others, leading toward the old industrial district. Factories and warehouses, their windows like empty eye sockets. Structural damage from artillery had created unpredictable collapse zones. Most soldiers would avoid that area, deeming it too unstable, which made it ideal. Something moved on a rooftop ahead. Elena raised her sidearm, tracking the motion, then relaxed fractionally. A piece of plastic sheeting, caught in the wind, flapping against broken tiles. Not a threat, but it could have been. She needed to think differently. 40 soldiers hunting them meant 40 sets of eyes, 40 opportunities for contact. Traditional evasion, staying low, moving slowly, avoiding detection wouldn't work. The enemy had numbers and organization. They could saturate the area, check every hiding spot, flush out their targets through systematic search. Elena needed to be somewhere they wouldn't think to look. She pulled Cross into the shell of a collapsed warehouse. The roof had fallen in, creating a mountain of rubble and twisted steel. Snow covered everything, making the pile look solid, stable. It wasn't. Elena found a gap in the debris pile, large enough to crawl through. She went first, testing each handhold, finding a path through the wreckage. Behind her, Cross followed, grunting with pain each time he had to bend his injured leg. Inside the debris pile, a hollow space opened up. The collapsed roof had formed an accidental shelter, walls of rubble supporting a precarious ceiling. It was dark, cramped, and utterly invisible from outside. They were 10 feet below street level, hidden beneath tons of wreckage. "Stay here," Elena whispered. "Where are you going?" "They'll search this area soon. When they do, they need to find evidence we went a different direction." She crawled back out of the shelter, leaving Cross in the darkness, emerged into the warehouse, brushed snow from her jacket, moved to the far wall, where a window frame stood intact despite the building's collapse. The window overlooked an adjoining alley. Elena climbed through it, dropped to the alley floor, deliberately creating clear footprints leading east. Followed that direction for 20 meters, making her trail obvious, then climbed through another window into a different ruined building. Circled back through that building's interior, exiting onto a parallel street. No footprints here, the snow undisturbed. She ran along the building's foundation, staying close to the wall where drifting had left bare concrete. Reached the warehouse from a different angle, climbed back to the debris pile, descended into the hollow where Cross waited. Total time elapsed, 8 minutes. She'd created a false trail leading east while staying west. When the enemy found her tracks, they'd pursue the wrong direction. Now we wait, she said. Cross shifted in the cramped space. For what? For them to search this grid. Once they clear it, they won't come back. It becomes safe space. It was a calculated risk. If the enemy was thorough enough, they might search the debris pile, might discover the hollow. But Elena was betting on human nature. Soldiers searching a collapsed building would focus on accessible areas, intact rooms, basement spaces, obvious hiding spots. Nobody would crawl into an unstable rubble pile. She hoped. Time stretched. They waited in darkness, listening to the sounds of the search, voices calling coordinates, boots crunching through snow. Once, flashlight beams pierced through gaps in the debris above them, turning their shelter into a cage of light and shadow. Elena's hand found her sidearm, finger resting alongside the trigger guard. 24 rounds. If they were discovered here, in this confined space, she'd have to make every shot count. Close quarters, multiple targets, limited maneuverability. The flashlight beams moved on. More voices, farther away now. The search pattern was moving east, following her false trail. Cross let out a breath he'd been holding. I can't believe that worked. It's not over. Elena checked her watch. 0452 hours. They'd been on the move for 33 minutes. They'll realize the trail is false eventually. When they do, they'll expand the search grid. So we can't stay here. No. But we've bought time. She pulled out the medical kit, found a penlight, used it briefly to examine Cross's leg. The splint had held, but swelling was increasing around the injury site. He needed proper medical attention. He'd need to make it another mile first. Can you keep moving? She asked. Do I have a choice? Then I can keep moving. Elena extinguished the penlight, returned the kit to her belt. They waited another 15 minutes, listening to the search parties move farther from their position. The voices grew distant, the flashlight beams sweeping different streets. The old warehouse district fell quiet again. Now, Elena said. They crawled out of the debris pile, emerged into the warehouse. The snow had intensified, visibility dropping to less than 50 meters. Good for concealment, bad for navigation. Elena oriented herself, using the building's positions, calculated their heading. They needed to move northwest, toward the city's edge, where the urban area transitioned to forest, 3/4 of a mile through hostile territory, with 40 soldiers actively searching for them, and 24 rounds remaining. She helped Cross to his feet, got her shoulder under his arm, took his weight, started walking. The city watched them go, its broken windows like eyes, its silence broken only by wind and distant shouts. And somewhere in that silence, a sniper was taking aim. Elena saw the laser sight first. Red dot, sweeping through the snow, searching for center mass. She threw Cross down, felt the impact as the round passed through space she'd occupied a heartbeat earlier. The crack of the rifle came after, echoing off ruined walls. They were in an open intersection, caught between buildings, no immediate cover. The sniper had them pinned. Elena dragged Cross toward a burned-out car, its frame providing minimal protection. Another shot sparked off metal, the sniper adjusting. Professional, patient. Not panicking, just recalibrating. Where? Cross gasped. Elena scanned the surrounding buildings. The shot had come from elevated position, southeast bearing. There a rooftop, 3 stories up, partial wall still standing. Movement behind it, barely visible. 600 meters, long shot for a handgun. Impossible shot, really. But the sniper didn't know what weapon she had, didn't know her capability. And snipers, even good ones, had predictable patterns. They chose positions with good sight lines, clear fields of fire, positions that also exposed them to counterfire. Elena raised her sidearm, aimed at the rooftop, fired 3 rounds in rapid succession. 21 rounds remaining. The shots weren't meant to hit, they were meant to make the sniper reconsider his position, make him duck, break his focus, interrupt his breathing. It worked. The laser sight disappeared. The sniper had moved to cover, repositioning. Move, Elena ordered. She pulled Cross up, dragged him toward the nearest building entrance. Not the closest cover, but the most strategic. An old apartment block with multiple exits, internal staircases, routes through the structure. A place where a sniper's advantage disappeared. They crashed through the entrance, into a lobby filled with scattered furniture and broken glass. Cross collapsed against a wall, breathing hard, face twisted with pain. "Your leg," Elena said. "It's fine." "It's not. You're bleeding through the bandages." She checked the splint. The fall had shifted it, putting pressure on the injury. Blood seeped through the fabric wrapping, not arterial, but steady. He'd lose consciousness eventually from blood loss if they didn't stop it. Elena pulled out the medical kit, worked quickly. Unwrapped the old bandage, applied fresh gauze, secured it tighter. The injury was worse than she'd thought. Bone fragments visible in the wound, tissue damage extensive. "This needs surgery," she said. "Yeah, well, I don't see a hospital nearby. When we get out, if we get out?" Elena looked at him directly. "When?" Cross met her gaze, saw something there that made him nod slowly. "When?" She finished securing the bandage, helped him back to his feet. He could barely put weight on the leg now, each step visible agony. They weren't going to make 3/4 of a mile at this pace. They'd be lucky to make 300 meters. "Nathan," she said quietly, "tell me about Sarah." He blinked, confused by the sudden change in subject. "What?" "Your wife. Tell me about her. Because I need you focused on something other than pain. And because I promised her I'd bring you home. I want to know who I made that promise to." Cross leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. Outside, voices called back and forth. The sniper's shots had drawn attention. Patrols would be converging on this location. "She's a teacher," Cross said finally. "3rd grade. She makes every kid in her class feel important, like they matter." He smiled, despite the pain. "She's terrible at cooking. Genuinely terrible. Burns water somehow. But she keeps trying. Sounds persistent. Stubborn. That's the word she uses." Cross's smile faded. "I wrote her a letter. Before the patrol. Just in case. Told her things I should have said years ago. You'll tell her in person." "Captain." Elena. He shook his head. "Even if we get out of this building, we're in the middle of their perimeter. 40 soldiers between us and extraction. You've got, what, 20 rounds left? The math doesn't work." "I'm not trying to kill 40 soldiers." "Then what are you trying to do?" Elena moved to a window, looked out at the city. Snow continued to fall, accumulating on rooftops, covering streets. The enemy was close now, close enough that she could hear their boots on pavement, their voices coordinating search patterns. "I'm trying to create one path through 40 obstacles," she said. "Every round I fire isn't meant to eliminate a target. It's meant to create an opportunity, a moment of distraction, a second of doubt, a hesitation long enough for us to slip past. That's not how combat works. It's exactly how combat works when you're outnumbered 20-1. She turned back to him. "Traditional thinking says we need overwhelming force to succeed. I'm telling you, we need overwhelming precision." Cross studied her. "You've done this before, haven't you?" Elena didn't answer. Didn't talk about the operation in Minsk, where she'd extracted 3 personnel from behind enemy lines with ammunition for exactly 1 engagement. Didn't mention the mission in Kharkiv, where she'd walked through hostile territory by convincing the enemy she was one of their own. Some stories stayed classified. Some memories stayed buried. "We need to keep moving," she said instead. "I'm slowing you down. You'd move faster alone. Also, yes, then leave me. Get yourself out. Come back with support." Elena crossed to him, put her hand on his shoulder. "Nathan, I didn't come here to leave you. I came here to bring you home. That means both of us walk out, or neither of us does." "That's not logical." "No," she agreed. "It's not." But it was true. They left the apartment building through a side exit, emerging into an alley lined with dumpsters and refuse. The snow had covered everything, creating a surreal landscape where garbage bins became abstract sculptures. Elena chose their path carefully, avoiding main streets, using the city's damage to their advantage. Collapsed buildings created shortcuts, rubble piles provided cover. The infrastructure's destruction became their navigation system. Cross struggled forward, each step visible effort. Elena supported his weight, matched his pace, refused to show frustration at their slow progress. Behind them, The search intensified. The enemy knew they were in this sector. It was only a matter of time before the net closed. "Talk to me," Elena said. "About what?" "Anything. Stay conscious. Stay focused." Cross was quiet for a moment, then, "Why'd you join?" "Join what?" "The military. Special operations. This." He gestured at the ruined city around them. "You could have done anything. Why choose this?" Elena considered the question as they moved through the snow. "Because someone has to." "That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have." They reached another intersection. Elena paused, checking sightlines, evaluating threats. The enemy's search pattern was tightening, converging on their location through systematic elimination of possible hiding spots. Time was running out. Distance to extraction point: half a mile. Rounds remaining: 21. Enemy soldiers: still 40, still hunting, still professional, and Nathan Cross could barely walk. Elena made a decision. "Change of plans," she said. The bells started ringing at 0523 hours. Not church bells. Warning sirens. The enemy had given up on quiet containment and switched to active pursuit. Throughout the occupied district, lights blazed to life. Generators roared. The dead city woke up. Elena pulled Cross into the basement of a partially collapsed school. They descended crumbling stairs into darkness, found a maintenance room with intact walls and a single exit. Defensible, if it came to that. "Rest here," she said, lowering Cross to the floor. "What are you doing?" "Buying us time." She checked her sidearm. 21 rounds. Enough for what she had planned, if she didn't miss. If circumstances stayed predictable. If luck held. Big ifs. Elena moved back up the stairs, leaving Cross in the basement, emerged into the school's ground floor hallway. Lockers lined the walls, their doors hanging open, contents long since looted or destroyed. Children's artwork still clung to one bulletin board, faded and water-damaged. She moved to a window overlooking the main street. The enemy's response was impressive in its speed. 6 vehicles had arrived in the past 5 minutes, disgorging soldiers who immediately established firing positions. They weren't searching randomly anymore. They were creating a grid, systematically clearing buildings. Professional, efficient, inevitable. Elena counted soldiers in her line of sight. 12. That meant at least 28 more spread throughout the district. 40 total, all focused on finding 2 people in a half-mile radius. She could use that focus. The lead vehicle was a modified truck, technical, with a mounted machine gun. The gunner stood in the bed, scanning rooftops. The driver stayed in the cab, engine running, ready to reposition. Standard tactical vehicle operation. Standard meant predictable. Elena sighted on the truck's front tire, compensated for distance and wind, squeezed the trigger. 20 rounds remaining. The tire exploded. The truck lurched, machine gun swinging wildly as the gunner grabbed for stability. Soldiers around the vehicle immediately took cover, weapons oriented toward the school. Elena was already moving, running down the hallway to the school's opposite side. Found another window, different angle. The soldiers were regrouping, several moving toward the school entrance. Good. That's what she wanted. She fired twice through the window, aiming high, rounds impacting the vehicle's hood. Not trying to hit anyone, just creating noise, drawing attention. 18 rounds remaining. Then she ran. Back through the hallway, down the stairs, into the basement. Cross looked up as she entered, questions in his expression. "Company's coming," Elena said. "Stay quiet." She moved past him, to the maintenance room's back wall. What looked like solid concrete was actually a false wall, poorly repaired during some past renovation. She pushed, felt it give slightly, pushed harder. The wall section pivoted, revealing a service tunnel beyond. Pipes ran along the ceiling, electrical conduits along the walls. Maintenance access, probably connecting to other buildings in the school complex. "You found that how?" Cross asked. "Building codes." Schools this era always had central utility tunnels. She helped him through the opening. "Came in handy when I was scouting our entry route." Behind them, boots thundered on the stairs. The soldiers had entered the school, were clearing it room by room. They'd find the basement soon. They'd find it empty. Elena pulled the false wall back into place, wedged it secure with a broken pipe. It wouldn't fool close inspection, but in the darkness, it might pass a cursory glance. The tunnel stretched ahead, lit only by emergency strips that somehow still had power. Elena and Cross moved through it, heading west. The tunnel sloped gradually downward, going deeper underground. Water dripped somewhere, echoing. After 100 meters, the tunnel branched. Elena chose the left fork, following markers on the pipes that indicated connection to the city's water treatment system. "Where does this go?" Cross whispered. "Away from them. That's all that matters right now." The tunnel opened into a larger chamber, a distribution hub where multiple tunnels intersected. Old equipment lined the walls, shut down and rusting. The ceiling was higher here, supported by metal beams. Elena stopped, checked her watch. 0534 hours. The diversion had bought them maybe 8 minutes of confusion. When the enemy failed to find them in the school, they'd expand their search. Might discover the tunnel system, might seal the exits, might have already sealed the exits. "We need to surface," she said. "Where?" Elena pulled out a mental map of the city, overlaid tunnel routes with street layout. If this tunnel ran where she thought it did, there should be an access point roughly 300 meters ahead, putting them outside the enemy's immediate search perimeter. Should be. A lot of things in this operation should be. They kept moving. Cross's breathing labored in the confined space. His injured leg dragged, scraping against concrete. The sound echoed through the tunnel system, potentially carrying to any listeners. Elena couldn't do anything about it. They just had to move fast enough that the sound didn't matter. The tunnel branched again. And again. Elena chose paths based on utility marker patterns, hoping the infrastructure followed standard design, hoping the maps she'd memorized were accurate, hoping the tunnels weren't flooded ahead. They rounded a corner and found the ladder. It ascended through a vertical shaft, rungs set into concrete, leading to a manhole cover 20 feet up. Dim light filtered down from above, dawn breaking, the long night finally ending. "Can you climb?" Elena asked. Cross looked at the ladder, at his injured leg. "I can climb." He went first, slowly, gripping each rung with both hands, pulling himself up without putting weight on the bad leg. Elena followed, ready to catch him if he fell. Each movement brought a gasp of pain, but he kept climbing. At the top, Elena pushed the manhole cover. It resisted, frozen in place by ice. She pushed harder, using her shoulder, driving upward with her legs. The cover shifted, scraped aside. Cold air rushed into the tunnel, carrying snow and the distant sound of engines. Elena climbed out first, scanning the area. They'd surfaced in a small courtyard, surrounded by low buildings. Industrial district, just like she'd hoped. No immediate threats visible, but that meant nothing. She helped Cross out, pulled him away from the manhole, lowered the cover back into place. They were on the city's northwestern edge, maybe a third of a mile from the extraction point. Closer than they'd been, but still deep in enemy territory. And dawn was breaking, removing the cover of darkness. Elena's radio crackled, Holt's voice tight with urgency. "Captain, we have you on thermal. You're clear for the next 200 meters, but there's a patrol sweep converging from the south, maybe 20 soldiers. ETA to your position, 6 minutes. 20 soldiers, half the enemy's strength, moving to cut off their escape route." Elena keyed the mic. "Can you guide us around them?" "Negative. They're spread in a line formation, covering too much ground. You'll have to punch through. 20 soldiers, 18 rounds." The math still didn't work. Unless she changed the equation. The factory complex was a graveyard of machinery. Elena pulled Cross through a shattered gate, into the skeletal remains of what had been a textile plant. Looms stood like iron skeletons, their mechanisms frozen by rust and time. The roof had partially collapsed, creating columns of snow falling through the darkness. Behind them, the sweep line advanced. 20 soldiers moving methodically, maintaining visual contact with each other, clearing the industrial district building by building. Standard sweep formation, textbook execution, no gaps in their line. But textbook also meant predictable. "They're going to find us," Cross said. His voice was weak, shock and blood loss taking their toll. "Captain, there's too many." Elena didn't answer. She was counting her remaining rounds, mapping the factory's interior, calculating angles and timing. 18 rounds against 20 soldiers in an organized formation meant she needed to change the tactical situation. Make them react to her, not the other way around. She found what she needed at the factory's center, a large open space where the main production floor had been. Steel support columns created a loose grid, providing minimal cover but excellent sightlines. The collapsed roof had left debris scattered everywhere, creating obstacles and hiding spots. "Stay here," she told Cross, positioning him behind a pillar. "Don't move. Don't make noise." "What are you?" "Saving ammunition." Elena moved to the factory's eastern wall, found a window overlooking the approach route. The sweep line was 100 meters out, advancing steadily. She could see individual soldiers now, their formation professional, weapons ready. She fired once, aiming at the ground in front of the rightmost soldier. 17 rounds. The shot kicked up snow and concrete fragments. The soldier dove for cover. The entire line halted, oriented toward the threat. Elena was already moving, running along the wall to a different position. Found another window, fired again. Different angle, different target. 16 rounds. The sweep line fragmented. Half the soldiers moved toward the first shot's origin. The other half converged on the second. Their formation broke, tactical spacing deteriorating as each soldier sought individual cover. No longer a coordinated sweep. Now, a collection of individuals responding to perceived threats. Elena circled through the factory, using its layout to her advantage. Fired from a third position, then a fourth. Each shot deliberate, each creating confusion about her location, drawing the enemy deeper into the factory's maze. 14 rounds remaining. The soldiers entered the factory, spreading through the production floor, checking behind machinery, searching for the shooter. They were cautious now, aware they were being manipulated, but uncertain how to counter it. Elena watched from an elevated walkway, tracking their movement patterns. 20 soldiers, scattered across the factory floor, no longer supporting each other effectively. She didn't need to kill 20 soldiers. She needed to convince 20 soldiers they were in more danger than one injured hostage was worth. She fired at the factory's far end, targeting a suspended piece of machinery. The round severed a rusted cable. The machinery dropped with a massive crash, the sound magnified by the factory's acoustics. 13 rounds. Soldiers spun toward the noise, weapons tracking. Half a dozen ran toward it, checking for casualties, looking for the source. Elena moved again, found Cross, helped him up. "Now we move. They're everywhere. They're distracted." She guided him through the factory's western section, away from the concentrated search. The soldiers were focused on the production floor, expecting contact, weapons ready for a firefight. They weren't watching the exits. Elena and Cross slipped through a service door, emerged into the loading dock area. Clear path to the next building, 30 meters across open ground. Behind them, gunfire erupted. The soldiers had found something, were shooting at shadows, at perceived threats, confusion spreading through their ranks. Elena ran, supporting Cross, crossing the open ground. Made it to the next building as more gunfire echoed from the factory. The soldiers were shooting at each other now, convinced they'd engaged a larger force, target saturation making them see threats everywhere. She'd used 5 rounds to create chaos among 20 soldiers. Better math. The next building was an old warehouse, mostly intact. They moved through it quickly. Elena, navigating by memory and tactical instinct, emerged on the far side, putting 200 meters between them and the confused factory sweep. Her radio crackled. "Captain, the main patrol has stopped pursuing. They're regrouping, treating it as a defensive action. You've got a window." "How long?" "Maybe 10 minutes before they reorganize. The extraction point is 400 meters northwest. We can see you on thermal." 400 meters. 10 minutes. Cross could barely walk, but they were close. So close. Elena checked her sidearm. 13 rounds remaining. Enough to create one more diversion if needed. Enough to buy the final seconds of escape. If the enemy didn't reorganize faster than expected, if they didn't have reserves positioned ahead, if luck held just a little longer. She helped Cross forward, into the snow, toward the edge of the dead city, toward extraction, toward home. They almost made it. 300 meters from extraction, the ambush closed around them. Not the disorganized patrol from the factory. This was different. 8 soldiers, positioned in a perfect L-shaped ambush formation, had been waiting. Professional placement, overlapping fields of fire, no gaps to exploit. They'd been herded here. Elena realized it instantly. Every diversion, every misdirection had been anticipated. The enemy commander had predicted her route, placed his best soldiers along it, and let her walk into the trap. "Weapons down," a voice commanded. The same commander from before, stepping out from cover. "Both of you, this ends now." Cross sagged against Elena, his injured leg finally giving out. She held him up, her free hand still on her sidearm. "Can't do that," she said. "You are surrounded, outgunned. Your hostage is dying. There is no escape." The commander gestured to his soldiers. "Put down the weapon. I will allow you both to live." Elena looked at the 8 soldiers. Experienced operators, weapons trained, fingers on triggers. Behind them, she could hear more soldiers approaching, the scattered patrols regrouping, converging on this position. In 90 seconds, there would be 20 soldiers here. In 3 minutes, 40. 13 rounds in her magazine, 8 immediate threats, more coming. The math definitively didn't work, unless she stopped thinking about winning. "Nathan," she said quietly, "when I move, you drop flat. Understand?" Cross nodded almost imperceptibly. Elena's mind raced through scenarios. 8 soldiers in an L formation meant specific sight lines, specific angles of fire. The position was strong but not perfect. The soldiers were focused on her weapon, on Cross, on maintaining their advantage. They weren't watching the ground behind them, where dawn light reflected off ice-covered concrete, where a puddle of meltwater had frozen in the night, creating a perfect mirror. Elena fired at the ice. 12 rounds. The bullet impacted the frozen puddle, shattering it. Fragments scattered. The nearest soldier instinctively turned toward the sound, tactical instinct checking his flank. Half a second of distraction. Elena moved. She fired twice at the closest soldier's position, not trying to hit him but forcing him to cover. Fired once at the commander, driving him back. Grabbed Cross, pulled him toward the only gap in the formation, the spot where the L-shaped ambush had a momentary blind angle. 9 rounds remaining. Soldiers opened fire, muzzle flashes lighting the dawn. Rounds cracked past, impacting snow and concrete around them. Elena returned fire, not aiming, just creating suppression, making the soldiers hesitate. 6 rounds. They crashed through a chain-link fence, into an empty lot. Cross screamed as his leg twisted, but Elena didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Dragged him forward through debris and snow. Behind them, the soldiers pursued, coordinated, professional. No panic, no confusion, just methodical pursuit of a target that couldn't escape. The extraction point was 100 meters ahead. Elena could see the tree line, the forest beyond, the edge of enemy territory. So close. A soldier appeared from the right, weapon raised. Elena fired twice. 4 rounds. The soldier went down. She didn't check if he was dead or just wounded. Kept moving. Cross's weight dragging on her, his breathing shallow. "Almost there," she gasped. "Stay with me." Can't keep going." "You don't have to. Just a little farther." 50 meters to the tree line. The commander's voice behind them. "Stop them. Do not let them reach the forest." Gunfire intensified. A round grazed Elena's shoulder, spinning her halfway around. She stumbled but didn't fall, momentum carrying her forward. 30 meters. Cross's leg gave out completely. He collapsed, pulling Elena down with him. They hit the snow hard, 10 meters from the tree line, 10 meters from safety. Soldiers were closing in, weapons aimed, certain of their targets. Elena had 4 rounds left. She could spend them trying to kill soldiers. Might drop 2, maybe 3 if she was lucky. The rest would kill them both. Or she could use them differently. She aimed upward, at the damaged building to their left. Its facade was crumbling, held together by ice and inertia. She fired all 4 remaining rounds at the building's weakest point, where stress fractures had already weakened the structure. 0 rounds. The facade collapsed. Tons of brick and concrete crashed down, creating a wall of debris between them and the pursuing soldiers. Dust billowed up, mixing with snow, creating instant zero visibility. In that moment of chaos, Elena pulled Cross to his feet, threw him over her shoulder in a fireman's carry, and ran. Her legs burned, her shoulder bled. Cross's weight nearly crushed her. She ran anyway. Crossed the final 10 meters. Broke through the tree line. Stumbled into the forest as gunfire erupted behind her, rounds cutting through branches, thudding into tree trunks. And then, other weapons answered. Friendly fire. Covering fire. Holt's voice in her radio. We've got you. Keep moving. Elena pushed deeper into the forest, where extraction team soldiers materialized from cover positions, weapons oriented back toward the city. A medic rushed forward, took Cross from her shoulders, lowered him to a stretcher. Got him, the medic said. He's alive. Elena collapsed to her knees, chest heaving, blood running down her arm. Behind her, the dead city fell silent. The enemy had stopped at the tree line, unwilling to engage superior defensive positions. It was over. Holt appeared beside her. Captain, that was the most reckless, ill-advised, tactically insane operation I've ever witnessed. Did it work? Elena asked. He looked at Cross, now being loaded into a medical transport. Looked at the 40 enemy soldiers visible at the city's edge, watching but not pursuing. Yeah, Holt said quietly. It worked. The helicopter appeared through morning snow, rotors beating thunder against the silence. Elena sat against a tree, medic wrapping her shoulder wound. It was superficial, the bullet having grazed rather than penetrated. She'd been lucky. They'd both been lucky. Cross was stable, conscious, his injured leg properly splinted now. He looked across at Elena, managed a weak smile. You kept your promise, he said. I told you I would. Sarah's going to want to meet you. Thank you properly. Elena shook her head. Just doing my job. That wasn't a job. That was... Cross trailed off, searching for words. That was something else. The helicopter landed, downdraft scattering snow. Medical personnel rushed forward with a proper stretcher, began transferring Cross aboard. He kept his eyes on Elena as they moved him. 40 soldiers, he called over the rotor noise. You walked past 40 soldiers. Elena stood, waved off the medic who tried to help her, walked to the helicopter, leaned close to Cross. I didn't walk past them, she said. I walked through them. There's a difference. He studied her face, understanding slowly. You never planned to fight all 40. Then what was the plan? Elena smiled, tired but genuine. Make them fight themselves. The helicopter lifted, carrying Cross toward safety, toward proper medical care, toward home. Elena watched it disappear into the gray morning sky. Holt approached, tablet in hand. Preliminary after-action report is requesting detailed account of how one operator with limited ammunition extracted a hostage from superior enemy force. Tell them I got lucky. That's not going to satisfy anyone. It's the truth. Elena looked back at the dead city, its ruined buildings silent under falling snow. Every round counted, every decision mattered, everything had to work perfectly. But it did work. This time, Holt was quiet for a moment. Command wants to debrief you immediately. They're calling it a textbook example of precision tactics under adverse conditions. It wasn't textbook. It was desperation. Maybe. But it was effective desperation. He closed the tablet. They're also recommending you for commendation. Elena waved that away. I don't need a medal. I need to know Cross makes it home. He will. Thanks to you. She didn't respond. Couldn't explain how it felt to know that Nathan Cross would see his wife again, would tell her stories about terrible cooking, would be there for whatever came next. Couldn't articulate the weight that lifted when a promise was kept. Some things didn't fit in after-action reports. The extraction team began packing equipment, preparing to move out. The dead city behind them was quiet now, the enemy having withdrawn deeper into their territory. Nobody celebrated the operation. Nobody talked about the 40 soldiers, the impossible odds, the single magazine. They just loaded gear and moved toward home. Elena took one last look at the city. Somewhere in that maze of ruins and snow, her rifle still sat in an enemy weapons locker. They'd study it, probably, wonder about the person who'd walked into their perimeter with such confidence. Wonder how she'd walk back out. Let them wonder. She turned her back on the dead city, followed her team into the forest. Hours later, in the debriefing room, they'd ask how she did it. How one person extracted a hostage from 40 armed soldiers. How she survived with one magazine. How she made decisions under that kind of pressure. She'd tell them about terrain, about timing, about using enemy psychology against them. about how you don't need to win every fight, you just need to win the one that matters. But she wouldn't tell them the real answer. The real answer was simpler. She'd made a promise. And promises, in the end, were worth any number of bullets. The dead city faded behind her, its silence returning, its secrets remaining. The snow continued to fall, covering tracks, erasing evidence, making everything clean again. By noon, you couldn't tell anyone had been there at all. But Nathan Cross was going home. And that was the only thing that mattered.